All righty. How are you guys doing this evening? I hope you guys are doing well. Um, monetization. How many of you are comfortable or uncomfortable talking about monetization for your podcast or for your live stream? How many of you are thinking about different ways or not thinking about different ways in order to monetize the content that you currently have? The content that you currently do. So tonight I'm super excited to have an amazing guest on tonight who is going to talk to us about monetization, how to be more comfortable with having that conversation, how to be more comfortable in your own skin and talking about the different tools and things that are out there that help you monetize your content. Hope you guys are doing well. My name's Steve Worthy. I am host of Podcasters Live. Our focus and our goal is to help podcasters and content creators understand how to grow their community and their influence using live streaming. Because the number one problem for podcasters, it's not getting started, or for content creators, it's not getting started. It's discoverability. And so our focus is to help you grow your community and your influence using live stream. So before we get into connecting with our with our guest tonight, and we're gonna say hello to everybody that's out there in the chat as well. Just got a couple things going on. If you're not looking at us on YouTube, go to YouTube and check us out at Podcasters Live as well. LinkedIn, you can connect with me over there as well. And then coming up on Saturdays, we actually have our Podcasters Academy that I'm actually excited about. That we actually just started that back up as well. So every Saturday at 9 a.m., you can catch us on our Facebook group and our live stream, and our YouTube channel to talk about podcasting tips and techniques as well. So this smiling face, he sent me like 4 or 5 pictures to use. And I don't know why. As soon as I saw this one, I fell in love with it because I think anybody that knows Rob Balasbas knows that this picture kind of it's like quintessential him. The dude is always smiling. He's always like approachable, always willing to connect with people. And so without, I always got to say that. I always say I hate saying that without further ado. So I want to, I got to find something else to say. So I want to introduce our guest tonight, Mr. Rob Balasbas. How are you doing, sir?
Hey Steve, good to be here, man. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Good, man. I'm excited. And, everybody always says, without further ado. And I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, all right. I'm like, okay,
That's good. That's good.
we always got to
I
say
use that
that.
all the time. I
I
use
know.
it all the time. I gotta change. I gotta come up with something new, but it's just natural. So
Yeah,
yeah, no,
it's
it's good
it's
to be here, man.
good, good. That and the word value too. Like, so I got an issue with the word value because that's like overused. So I'm sorry.
I know.
I digress, man. I digress. Before we say hello to everyone that's out there in the chat, would you tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, and then we can kind of get into saying hello to some people out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, Rob Balasabas. Good to see everybody here. I see a lot of familiar names. Chad, I see you, Monty, all the crews over here. Chris, Sammy. Yeah. Yeah, I'm head of partnerships at uscreen.tv. So we're a video monetization platform. So we work right now. I think we've got almost 30,000 content creators that use our platform on a regular basis, building their memberships, building their sort of version of Netflix, and building revenue streams there. So yeah, it's an awesome role, and to get to play and hang out with a lot of different content creators, and yeah, so it's been really fun. So that's by day, and then at night, I have my own channel. I have my own YouTube channel and membership, and really trying to practice what we preach at Uscreen and applying that to my own personal brand as well. So get to play on both sides of the court, in some ways. Yeah.
Excellent, man. I've seen a little bit just of your maturation, right? When I think about kind of your journey as
Hmm.
almost being more behind the scenes when it
Hmm.
comes to like content creation with of course your two buddy, which is I know you
Yeah.
cut your teeth on those guys, and of course now you're with you screen. And
Yeah.
I just watch your maturation. Now you've actually kind of adjusted from being behind the scenes to actually being more in front of the scenes. Can you talk a little
Mm.
bit about that transition? Because I know some people are probably, very similar. They're like, okay, I
Mm.
like this aspect, but now you've actually started to kind of move more in front of the camera as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's there's a lot of different reasons for that. I think for myself, it's been I've always been very camera shy. Like growing up, I'm not a guy that you'll see a lot of home videos. When I was a kid, I was very shy as a kid, and so it's a personal thing that I'm trying to work on to be better on camera, speaking on stage, like public speaking and all those things. So that's one part of it, but also just in terms of business, TubeBuddy, Uscreen. I think it's important for brands and businesses, everybody here, content creators, to really put a face to their business and humanize their brand. Again, for the things that you mentioned earlier, Steve, to make it more approachable, make it more human. I think services and platforms and software, especially, can be very much transactional, and so the defining sort of like advantage sometimes is the relationships that you build, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the reasons why we go to conference, we were all hanging out at Podfest, last week. Big reason for a lot of people that went there was really not to learn anything new. Yes, of course, but really to build relationships, and so I think that's really important. And put a face, shake people's hands, do all those things. I think that's a big part of business. And so yeah, stepping more in front of the camera, to your question, is really important, I think, for myself and my own personal growth, but also the businesses that I've had the pleasure to represent.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's say hi to a couple people who are out there.
Yeah.
What's going on, Harry? How are you doing, sir? Good to have you there. Someone on YouTube says, "Let's go." What's up, Sammy? Sammy Superstar. How are you doing, big guy? We got to talk. And Mr. Chad, Rob always looks surprised with those big brown eyes. Oh my God, that sounds like a song. Well, there was a song called Brown Eyes, Big Brown Eyes. The rope. Okay, alrighty. We'll see what that is. It's not running. Came to hang out with us. Yes, you will, sir. I'm excited to connect with you guys. So around
Yes.
so we're gonna talk to Rob for around another, around another 20 minutes or so, and then we're gonna be bringing
Yeah.
some more people that actually excited about. We're gonna kind of chop it up a little bit about Podfest, learn a little bit more about that, and teach you guys maybe a couple different things as well. So Jacksonville, hey, how are you doing? How are you doing? Good to see you there, Roz. I'm glad you're here. And then Chad again. I haven't even launched my own podcast yet, but Podfest inspired me. Good, good. Well, Chad, connect with me, man. We can talk about that. I've turned so many people into like that have good content into podcasters. So I can
Yeah.
help you with that. Oh, there's the dude. They're monetized on Amazon.
Oh
Yeah, yeah, buddy.
man.
You know he was gonna
What's up,
say
Chris?
that. You knew he was gonna
Yeah.
say that. He knew he was gonna say that. Boom, boom, time to monetize. And look at
That's
this.
right.
And then he even said hello. He
That's
even
right.
said hello.
See,
Mr.
there we
Rob said
go. There
hello
we
as
go.
well too. I appreciate that. What chat's okay. Chat's heckling now. Rob had to. There's always one. There's always one. I knew it was gonna be.
Always one,
There's
man.
always one.
You got to embrace them.
You gotta embrace them. You gotta embrace them. You can't, you can't. I'm not gonna block you off, chat. I'm not gonna block you off. What's going on, Walter? How are you doing, sir? Good to have you here today. Um, what did Chris say here? I haven't heard people say without further to do. Without further, did I say to do? Or do we? Or is that what you're asking us to change it to? I
That's
don't
right.
know.
That's
I don't know. West Side. I don't want to throw up any gang signs, man. I don't know how to do that stuff.
right.
This is a family show. What's going on, Mr. Riley? How are you doing?
See Mr. Riley
Uh,
here. Awesome.
yeah, we got a whole bunch of crew. We got crew in here. And then the Silver Fox, you made it. Thank you for being here. I appreciate that.
DJ, awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, man. We got a good crew in here. Hey there, glad to
yeah.
be here. Just started soaking it all in. Good. So we're gonna move
Awesome.
into some stuff. All right, excellent. All right, so Rob, one of the things we were talking a little bit about was,
Mhm.
when people are talking about monetization, or content creators are talking about monetization, some of
Yeah.
them are a little apprehensive about it, and they're like, "Well, I'm not sure if that's kind of what I do. My content is like it's my content. I just want to put it out there, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure if monetization is right for me." What's something that you would say to certain people out there who are kind of, maybe they're afraid of, kind of sticking their toe in the water, or even maybe broaching the conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations around creator economy, making money as a content creator, and I'm glad that there is. When I
Mhm,
first started, I mean, not too long ago, like 2 3 years ago, everybody was just all about creating really good content, right? Being a really good content creator, and I think that became like sort of the thing for a lot of people to make good content, right? And so the conversation around revenue and making money, brand deals, affiliates, all that stuff, memberships and courses and things, that kind of became a little bit taboo. Like nobody really talked about numbers, like how much do you make, how much do you charge. We got a lot of people here in the chat, Monty and like Chris, they've got sponsorships happening. And I think maybe it's just recently that we started talking about them and like, hey, this is what I'm doing with this brand, and this is what I'm doing with this brand, and this is what I'm doing with like memberships, and this is why I'm pricing it. And a lot of that transparency is starting to come out now, which is really good. That conversation is really happening, and so this is actually one of the talk that I did at VidFest last week was just understanding as a content creator the difference between different channels. There's channels that are meant for discovery, and this is podcasts fall into that, right? This is how you get discovered. This is YouTube and Reels and TikTok. This is how you get discovered. Like an audience looking for your content is will discover you on these platforms.
mhm,
These are not really meant for you to make money on, right? There's a little bit, there's a small portion, portion of it where you can make AdSense money and creator fund money and things like that. But it's not really built entirely for that. Now, then that's where revenue platforms come into
mhm,
play, right? Patreon, Uscreen, memberships, affiliates, coaching, consulting, all of these things, sponsorships and brand deals. These are actual revenue channels. And so, a lot of creators are trying to make like, let's make money on platforms where it's supposed to be really discovery. And so let's try to be discovered and make money on the same platform. And a lot of times you're not going to really have a lot of success. You'll have a little bit of success, make a little bit of money, but it's going to be really short lived. And you might get disappointed, frustrated. You may end up quitting and saying, hey, this channel doesn't work for me. Because you're not really thinking about the content distribution, right? You're not thinking about the distribution of like, hey, as a business, this is how I'm going to distribute my content intentionally with purpose
mhm, mhm,
so that I can get discovered and then also make revenue, right? And so just understanding that, I think, is one of the things we're really trying to advocate out there in the market. Discovery versus revenue, so that, content creators, we can make money, it's sustainable, it's predictable revenue, and then you can build businesses, employ other people, and sort of, be sort of that content creator that goes full time. Yeah.
Yeah. You you said something that it caught me, and you said distribution of your content, and
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
order to make that, not just to monetize, but distributing your content.
Hmm.
What content do you see right now, or because this may be a loaded question, right? But what content do
That's
you
good.
see right now that is being highly distributed and actually also seeing a return on that investment? I'm not saying that people should actually, say, okay, oh my gosh, let's just say it's real estate. Oh my gosh, I should become a realtor. Now I want to do this. But you got to have a passion for it. But I know that there's probably something, that distributable content that's actually really hot right now, that's actually kind of working, and people are actually kind of going down that line. Is there something that you've been seeing in the marketplace?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's it's all it comes down, to sort of supply and demand of content. So if you were to look at, for example, LinkedIn videos, right? There's a supply and demand. There's not too many people making LinkedIn videos. LinkedIn wants to get into the video game. They've been trying to do that for the last couple of years. And so if you make videos, again, supply and demand, then you'll do pretty well. Of course, all things considered, there's you got to make good content still. It's not sort of like guaranteed, but in terms of supply and demand, then you'll do fairly well if you start making videos on LinkedIn. Now, the bigger question though, Steve, is like, what is the video supposed to do? Like, what is the
Correct.
next
Correct.
thing that,
Correct.
yeah, like the viewer, what do you want the viewer to do after watching that piece of content or listening to that podcast episode? That's sort of like, again, the distribution or the funnel, if you want to look at it that way. Like, where does this video come into play? Where does this channel come into play? And that's really, I think, the more important question, rather than spinning tires and like, hey, let's make more content, just be everywhere. I think it's really important to take a step back and just make sure that you have the mechanisms behind the scenes to actually build revenue off of that content.
Dude, that was like, I don't have my Rodecaster Pro. I sold it, or else I would be like hitting all types of buttons, because I'm getting ready for the Rodecaster Pro 2. Or else I would be hitting all types of buttons. So I'm making believe that I'm here. Actually, they don't they have one now? I know they have an applause sound. There we go.
There you go.
There we go. They got the sound. They got the sound effect thing going on. Um, Oh man, you just crushed it. When you just that is like the number one thing. What do they do? So people hopefully understand that. What do they do with your video afterwards? What do they do with your podcast afterwards?
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
so and I and if I can further this, the maybe the add on to the question maybe a little bit, Rob. So are you saying that when they're making the content, they need to make it with some measure of intentionality in order to push people to a certain funnel, or to a certain next step as well?
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, it's if you look at, I'm trying to think of something, an example in like real life business, that's sort of an example here, but if you look at, I don't know, if you look at Costco, right? You go in, you get the free samples and stuff, and then they've got different sizes of products. You've got sort of like different sizes, and so you get the free thing, you try it out, and then you're like, okay, cool, let me get the small bag. Costco only has one big bag, but just stick with me in the example. The small bag, and then okay, cool, that works really well. That's perfect for my family. Next time I go, I'm gonna get the big bag. I'm gonna get the annual plan or whatever. Subscribe to the annual thing. Go to the high ticket coaching, right? And so that's sort of the same thing with your content. Like it can just be like one podcast full episode interview that you chop up and you repurpose. Now, when you talk about repurposing, it's really a distribution
Correct.
conversation,
Correct.
right? How are you going to chop up this one long piece of video or audio and then distribute it in a way that leads to where you want people to go, where they eventually pay you, right? And so the beauty of content creating is that you can make multiple revenue streams from one piece of content, right? From that content, it could be a sponsored content. It could also be, something where you make affiliate revenue. It could also be something that leads to your membership or your courses from that one piece of content. You just have to make sure that you understand exactly what you're creating before and what the intention of that video is or that live stream is, before you actually create that content. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your
No,
question
no,
there.
dude, no, no, that's perfect. Because one of the things that we talk to people about all the time, when they're starting a podcast or a live stream, is to actually have their own product or a lead magnet or something, right, that they can promote. And especially, so let's just say in a podcast, one of the things that we teach them is to create space within their podcast for a lead magnet, or what we call host read ad. And now they can actually read something for something for you screen. But what that
Yeah,
does, it it prepares not just them but also potential sponsors, to let them know that there's actually space, that this content creator is actually creating space for a potential ad. So I think that's another piece, that there needs to be some measure of intentionality with too when you're trying to create this content. You should act, if monetization or sponsorship or brand deals or something like that is down on the line, so you need to be a little bit more intentional, with that aspect as well too. So,
yeah,
one of the things that we are talking about, and I just started getting into it. I'm actually a little addicted to it, because you made me addicted to it, and it's vlogging, and it's and
nice.
it's
Yeah.
and it's vlogging. I was joking, but I'm dead serious when I said you are responsible for my purchase of the GoPro Hero 9. Like everybody blames Tom Buck for the purchase of their Rodecaster Pro 2. I'm blaming you for the purchase of my of my GoPro. Um, I, if those are in the audience, if you haven't checked out his vlogs, they are absolutely amazing. I've seen the maturation in your editing and also just your storytelling,
Thank you.
therein. Uh, what made you decide to do the vlog, and then how has that vlog kind of helped you not just personally grow, but also helped you kind of move down from a revenue stream standpoint, if it has?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, again, one of the things was, my channel was traditionally a lot of, I mean, it still is, and I still love making tutorials and live streams and product reviews and things. One of the things that I felt like was kind of missing anyway was, it was kind of robotic of like, hey, this is this is the tool, this is how you do this thing with this software. It's kind of robotic. There's really no personality, very little. And so, you know what, let's take, it's like, hey, you know what, I love, I want to be a better storyteller. I get to do some of these things, outside of town or like, in the city. Let's take the audience with me, and like it's kind of like hanging out with me and I get to hang out with them. So that's really the reason for it. In terms of like money, yes, AdSense on the vlogs. There's some products that I'll get to mention, so there's affiliates as well. And in terms of just sort of building my brand, it just helps humanize my brand. They get to know me a little bit outside of like these four walls in this home studio, right? So yeah, that's really it. So yeah, but yeah, thanks for the shout out on that. The GoPro is awesome. It's like my favorite thing when I'm outside of the house. It's the best. It's like so easy to use. Yeah,
It
there
it
you go. You're
it
pulling
it,
it
it
up.
is. It is.
Yeah,
And then I got the whole little kit thing going on too. It's links in the bio. Just gonna let you go.
there you
Links
go.
links below. Here we go. Here we go.
Perfect, perfect. All
Yeah,
the Amazon guys are in the chat now, so there you go.
I
Yeah,
know, right? I
shrinkable
know. They're
video.
gonna, they're gonna, don't take. You guys aren't even using the freaking GoPro. Don't even put. I don't want to see that on your channel. Stop it. Rob and I get the market on that one. So don't even think about it. Don't even
Called it
think
already.
about it. Now you've
Yes.
been to several different conferences, and we're going to talk about Podfest and all of that stuff too
Yes.
here in a second. But one of the
Mhm.
things that I feel like you are super known for, and not just the conference thing, is the fact that of how you connect with people. You say that when you are on, you're on video, you're working through like being uncomfortable and all these different things. Man, I don't know, I'm just gonna give you some flowers. I don't see it. I think you
Thanks,
are
man.
you are an inspiration to a lot of us who are out there, but also your ability to connect with people and actually just have a genuine conversation and super approachable. I think a lot of people can learn some of that stuff from you. So I just wanted to dote on you for a second there, just so that
Thanks,
everybody
man.
kind of gets to know a little bit how
Thanks,
you
man.
are and the
Yeah,
person that you are as well. So,
appreciate
w-
that.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So when we talk about your monetization,
Yeah.
what's one mistake, you know, one mistake that people are making right now, and that you've seen consistently happen, and then what's one thing that people should start doing?
One mistake. Yeah, I think one mistake, and myself included, I've made this mistake, and I still do sometimes, is like just putting it off too like putting it off too far ahead. Like, hey, you know what? I can't do this until I do this. I can't do this. I can't launch this until I do this. I can't start thinking about making money as a creator until I do this. I had this conversation with one of the guys that spoke, and about speaking and charging for speaking, and it's like, who would pay for me to speak? Like, I would just be happy to speak. I get myself down there. It's all good. But then, sort of thinking of those things, like I can't launch this, or I can't get into affiliates until I do this. So I think just putting it off too long and waiting too long is probably one of the more common mistakes that I see out there. And not just small or up and coming creators, big creators too that we get to interview. They're just waiting for certain milestones before they get permission to do the thing they
Mm,
want to do or launch the thing they want to do.
mm,
And so I guess to that, like, yeah, just think about it. I mean, when it comes to what we're talking about here as it relates, making money as a content creator, as soon as you start creating content, build a community, right? Start thinking about that. Affiliates right away. You don't need all of these, like, you don't need to be in a certain program or requirements. And also just understanding your value as a content creator. All the eyeballs are moving to all the platforms that you guys are creating on podcast, consumption of that video, Amazon. The consumption of that content on those platforms is eating up, the market share of consumption on TV
yeah.
and radio. And so you got to understand your value as a content creator out there, that, hey, you're building an audience, and this audience is very loyal to you. So if a brand approaches you, or you should approach a brand, don't wait for them to approach you. Just understand that you have value, because what you say, your audience trusts, right? And so
Mm,
that carries a lot of value to a brand, because as a brand, there's less and less options for them to market and pay and promote their products and services. And the best return is more and more content creators directly. So really understand the value of your brand, and really treat it like a business.
yeah, agreed, agreed.
Yeah.
And then the last question before we
Yeah. Yeah.
get everybody to kind of get some people to kind of hop on. If you those who we've already spoken to, go ahead and click the link. Go ahead and get in the green room. So we already got
All
one
right.
heckler
There
back
you
there. We already got that knucklehead. I don't know if we gonna leave or let him on. I don't know. You Rob, you gotta let me
go.
know
Yeah.
if we gonna let him on the
Got to keep
stage
an
or
eye
not.
on him for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Community. You talked about
Mm,
community, and I think that's
yes.
one of the fastest ways to grow your brand.
Hmm.
And I know community means a lot to different people. In your
Yeah.
aspect of, since you've been in this content creation game for a while, what's some of the,
Hmm.
what's like one thing that a person can do to kind of right now kind of establish, kind of grow a community? Because I think people miss the boat on that one, and they need to do it. So if you can share something real quick on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think you got to be part of community yourself as a creator, regardless what you're doing. Even if you don't launch a community yourself, you got to be part of a community. Get connected with Steve and Monty, DJ, like the people here in the chat. Community is very important. As a creator, it's a kind of a lonely. There's a lot of lonely times, right? And so there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, fluctuating with business and content, and content popping off and not. So community will really kind of help you stay grounded and stay in the game. Otherwise, it's going to be very easy to be sort of like blown away. So community is very important to be part of one. As far as like starting a community, pick a platform, right? You just
Hmm,
need to pick a
hmm,
platform
hmm.
and build that community. Like, just to start inviting people to that community, and but then understand, make it free, or a low price, right? It really depends. You gotta play that out, but get permission to do that. Like, either charge for it a low price. The more, sometimes there's free communities, and and there's paid ones, and so it's a lot of people kind of attached value to cost, and so you want to make sure that, hey, if you're bringing a lot of value, and you may want to charge for that community right from the jump. So but build that community, and that community will really protect your business as it grows, and keep them, and they're your focus group for the things that you're building, right? The products that you may start to build, the services you may start to build. Listen to that community that's becoming your true fans, and that's the best way to really, use that community, and focus on that community. So don't be scared of that.
Excellent. One quick question before we go.
Yeah.
Get with those guys we have from Walter Strong. How important is it to have a media kit? Also, what are some recommended steps in putting one together? Great question.
Great question. Yeah, media kits is pretty important, I would say. Really, especially when you're starting out, especially when you're up and coming. You don't have a massive, when your channel doesn't speak for itself, right? In terms of subscriber size, you got to have a media kit. Really helps. I know that from the Uscreen side, I'm the person that reviews all the sponsorship, proposals and things. So when I see a media kit, it really helps. And as far as resources, Canva, they've got templates already.
Yeah, yeah.
There's media kits. I think mediakits.com, look it up. It's like you essentially just connect your YouTube channel, Instagram, and it makes a nice looking media kit. Yeah, a lot of options out there, and check out YouTube. There's a lot of there's a few videos on how to build a nice media kit.
There is, there is, and hey, Walt, I could send you mine over to you a little bit later as well.
There you go.
And just before we move forward, I did want to, these are the guys that are paying your bills, so I did want to, I did want to make sure we talked a little bit
Appreciate it. Thank you.
about this before we move forward. You want to quickly talk a little bit about Uscreen and then how people can actually utilize the service to actually grow their business.
Yeah. There's so many different ways to use Uscreen, but just think of it as the place where you house your exclusive content and your membership. That's really it. Building your own Netflix, so people can access it from their browser. But we also build out white labeled Apple TV apps, iOS, Android, Roku, Fire TV apps for our creators. And so, rather than sending their people over to YouTube, they send them to their own apps. Where they can control all the content and everything. They can live stream inside as well for members only live streams and Q&As and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's an awesome platform in terms of monetizing.
Yeah. Quick question on here.
Yeah.
For you, can you go live into Uscreen?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely go live inside of Uscreen to your members only. A lot of our creators do that on a daily basis, and that's one of the main selling points for their membership. Is access to them, closer access to them like that. Yeah.
Yes, and I am an affiliate, and the link will be in the bio.
Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. If you guys go through Steve's link there, send me a message, rob@uscreen.tv, and I'll extend that trial to 30 days. So you guys can play around and upload content, whatever you guys want to do. And if you have any questions, reach out to us, of course.
There we go. And then one last question just popped up. Can you host podcasts in Uscreen?
Yeah, technically, yeah. You can do exactly what we're doing here, and you can stream it into inside of Uscreen to your members only. And so one example, Steve, if you don't mind me sharing, one example that people are doing is they're doing sort of their recording for their podcast to their members only, right? Inside of Uscreen. Once they record it, then the replay goes to all the podcasting platforms. But that live recording is only for the members only inside of Uscreen. And that's where, they'll ask, they can ask questions, can meet the guest, and things like that. And sort of that exclusive access to their members inside. So yeah, you can definitely do that.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you all for the quick questions. And DJ, I will definitely send you that link. So Rob and I had the pleasure of attending this week last week actually, Podfest. It was my second or third conference in live since the pandemic. And I got to tell you, I learned so much. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring on several people who actually had the opportunity to go to Podfest and actually experience it. And for the community who was there, or people who weren't there, but really for those who weren't there, just to share their experiences here. And so I got all of these guys. Look at these guys. Look at this guy. Look at this peanut
Wait a
gallery.
minute, man. How come mine is big, man? You should have someone like,
Okay, let's
MW over there with the
there
big.
we go. We're gonna put
there you
Rob
go.
big.
There you go.
I got
No.
Junaid. We got
There you
Junaid
go,
big.
there
There we go. There you go.
Yeah.
See now my female viewership is gonna go up because Junaid's big. There we go.
I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
Yeah, if you guys want to subscribe because of Junaid will be in all of my videos, and go ahead and subscribe because of that. I appreciate that.
Mr. June himself. Awesome. Look at him. Yeah, Mr. June
there we
himself.
Go. If we get 100 likes, Junaid will, I don't know what Junaid will do. But.
Hilarious.
I don't know what we get.
I know.
I know. He'll sing, guys. He'll sing.
Awesome.
He'll sing. We're Monte got what happened with Monte?
Monte messed around and got nervous.
He got nervous because just sitting next to Junaid. He got, come on, Monte. Come on back.
All that Junaid smoke right there. That's what it was. They got him. He got that Junaid smoke.
All right, fine. I'll do the same. What's going on?
What's going on? Oh, there we go. All right.
He playing.
Monte hung up, but he'll be back. He'll be back. Well, I was going to, and I'm not was, but I am. I'm going to let Mr. James Hicks kind of lead the discussion with the questions or whatever, because we were all there, and I wanted him to, because he kind of asked some decent questions sometimes.
He knows.
You never know where I'm gonna come from, right? When you put me on the camera, yeah.
You never know. But also, people, everybody is in the audience. Please, if you have a question, make sure you put a Q in front of it, because I'll make sure I kind of tackle the question stuff as James is kind of leading us through some of the discussion. And Monte, where are you, buddy? Come on back. Go ahead, James.
All right. Hey, first of all, appreciate you for allowing us to have this opportunity on the platform and look through the wonders of technology, right? We're streaming on almost everyone here's channels. So all the integrated comments are coming through. So Steve's able to consolidate those and bring those on screen. My caveat is actually I was not there at PodFest, VidFest, not necessarily a FOMO thing, but I didn't go because I wanted to have a third person removed conversation similar to this, right? I wanted to hear from you folks, you experts, you champions that were actually there, and get someone who didn't attend. What were those best practices? What were those tidbits, those ideas that you're actually going to walk away and be actionable about? Look, it's all good to be in the room. It's all good to have lunch. It's all good to take pictures with folks, right? But now it's time to actually put that stuff to action that you were sitting in the room. So I don't know. Let's go from my right to left, the man in the big screen. Today, let me ask you first. What did you garner from those 3 or 4 days that you were there in Florida from the event? Just the logistics of the event, first of all, so folks can know who didn't go what it's going to be like maybe next year. So the logistics, how the event was set up, and then what were your top 2 things that you took away from the event?
I love that, man. So the logistics were amazing because, number one, these guys have been doing PodFest for the past decade almost. The first podcast expo back in 2013, I got to talk with Chris for a little bit, and he's like, the first one, it was in 2013. They had about 15 people show up, and since then, it's just been an amazing experience. People keep coming back because, and what I loved about it was being able to touch and feel and hang out with the people that we've been on Zoom call, that we've been on live streams together. And it's a whole different dynamic when you're next to people, when you're able to see. And I think that was my number one reason of why I decided to go to this event.
Okay. And everyone, I guess, again, back to from a logistics perspective again, because I'm bringing in the travel concern, right? I just want to make sure folks, next year that they're good with going. So was the event actually at the same hotel where most of the folks stayed? How was that kind of laid out?
That was the best thing that they had done, right?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Hilton Orlando has a convention center built in to the same hotel.
Massive.
So people staying at the hotel, you just walk down to your places. So when I got in on Thursday, I checked into my hotel room, walked over to the registration for the Podfest, and checked in and got my badge. I was like, I gotta get my badge first. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, and that's where I saw Monty. That's where I saw Chris Giles. And, we're like, oh, let's go downstairs and see what is happening. And then we walked down to the VitFest arena, and we got to see Roberto Blake, and we had other speakers speaking up there. And it was just so flawless. Like, I didn't have to
Nice.
think and walk over to the next building because we had experienced social media marketing world just earlier this year.
That's exactly why I'm bringing. So yeah, there's method to my madness, brother. That's exactly why I'm bringing that
right.
out. Stay with me here, right? That's exactly why I'm
Yes.
asking those questions.
Logistically, it was very well done. Now, this hotel was a little further away, about 15, 20 minutes from Orlando Airport. So you had to, arrange for your ride. Either you rent a car, either you, grab an Uber, or I'm not sure if there was a shuttle available. I didn't look into that, but
No, I don't think
that
so.
could have been,
Not from the airport to the hotel. I don't think so.
yeah.
No.
Okay.
So overall, from that perspective, it was flawless. It was good.
Awesome. Dr. Balasbas, listen, you were on stage, you were presenting, you were hosting events, meetups and greetings and things of that nature. Your overall, what did you walk away from the conference with that really struck you? We can go into kind of the agenda in a little bit, but I just want to know specifically what did you walk away from the conference with?
There's quite a few. I sat in on quite a few of the talks. I'm just going through my notes here. Let's see, what did I, man, there's a lot. There's the whole day with Chris. I see Chris here, and Jim on Amazon Live. That was very, yeah, that was a really good day. There's a lot there. I actually didn't really expect too much of it because I wasn't really involved. I'm not really involved with Amazon Live that much, an affiliate and all that stuff. But I didn't learn until then, sitting on one of the panels, listening to a panel, that I'm like, hey, I should probably just check my Amazon account, and then looking in, I've been on the Amazon influencer program for like, I don't know how long now, like a couple months. I just didn't know. So that, like, initially, like right away, like started looking into it, what it looks like. So yeah, that's a huge opportunity, and that was really through one of the sessions there. That whole day on Friday was all about that. Other than that, there's a lot of sessions. I mean, there's so many notes here, like questions I had about numbering or not numbering your podcast episodes. Meredith for real was her name, was doing a session on that, titling your podcast and things, and titling, and coming up with different strategies, some new tools. That came across. SEMrush has a really good keyword magic tool, for example. I learned the Leaf strategy from Nate Woodbury on how to come up with, just a ton of content really easily and dominate on different terms. So just a fountain, water hose of information.
All kind of stuff.
All kinds of stuff. The trick now is just to make sure that we apply it and execute on it.
Exactly. Steve, I'm gonna ask you another question in a minute, but I want to ask, just kind of piggybacking off of what Rob said. I know there was the expo there. I know there were a lot of vendors there that were positioning their platforms. I know Lisbon was one of the main sponsors of the event. For the new podcasters out there, not you old school folks that have been around the block a number of times, were there? So was they leaning towards any specific type of a platform in terms of where a new podcaster should host their podcast, and in terms of how they should actually go about uploading that episode 1 through 10, right? Was it something like Libsyn and Captivate and Podbeam? Who were they leaning toward? Were they saying specific names like that, or were there more general principles in terms of how to podcast, as opposed to go with Captivate and go with Podbeam or something of that? That's for you, Steve.
Yeah, everybody's in different camps, right?
Yeah.
So you had Lisbon people who were in a Lisbon camp, of course, since Libsyn had a massive presence there, of course, I heard more Libsyn than anything else, right? So just like if Buzzsprout was to host it, right? Or
right.
to, so you have I didn't hear a lot of Anchor. I did hear some of it. I'm not an Anchor fan myself, and I kind of shy people away from it. But I think there was that you have your own camps. I think one of the main takeaways for some of the newbies, if you will, is like one of the things that we talk about with Podcasters Live is getting started, right? Is getting started, and then as you get started, understanding that this is a craft, and that
Mhm.
it is going to take time, right? I think people think we just sit here in front of a microphone and you record and that's it. There is a craft associated with it, and I think the beginner's track, if you will, had a lot of topics that focused in on kind of getting you started, but then also helping you understand a little bit more about how to nuance your show, how to talk to a guest, how to bring on a guest, how to engage the audience, and then also there was some measure of storytelling, different tracks as well too. So all these different things from a newbie standpoint that I think, when I started in 2007, we were just talking, right?
Right.
If I had a lot of that stuff back then, I mean, it would have been game changer. So I think some of those things were actually there as well.
Interesting. So let's get into that, right? And then
Mhm.
hopefully Monte can jump on. But I'd be
Yeah.
curious to know again what are those specific actionable steps and items that each of you are going to take? Is it again having because your run of show for your podcast, I would
Mhm.
expect is different than your live stream, right? Your hooks, your bumpers, your call to actions, things of that nature. I would expect, and again you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just wondering if the way that you actually go about uh, producing and generating an audio podcast is different than it is for your video live stream. And let me ask you that first, Junaid.
Yeah, so I don't live stream any of my content. I record directly, especially for my podcast, because I want to give 100% attention to my guest. So when I bring the guest in, it's just me and my guest having a conversation. That way I can go really deep and ask those questions that I might not be able if there's an audience present. It just becomes the more intimate conversation. More, I get a lot more out of it, and the more I discovered about how I work personally, that 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 kind of setup for myself is more appropriate, right? So
Okay.
people have different type of ways that they communicate, and I'm discovering more of it. And like, hey, I try to do a live stream, but I just didn't. It just didn't work for me as well.
Mhm.
So that's an experience that I have to either build in or build, kind of like work on that strategy. But my strategy has been to just have a one-on-one conversation and build that up. Now, going in the future, some of the things that I did learn from VidFest and PodFest was that how do you come up with a way to actually have live stream conversation,
Mhm.
actually do
Mhm.
an Amazon live show, because that's something that I want to get back into. It was a lot of fun, and there might be something coming down the pike. I might have to reach out to maybe all of you guys and bring you on guest on
What
that
you
live
about
show.
to
So
drop some info here? What you got some
Yeah.
I don't
behind the
know. I don't
scenes?
know.
Go ahead and
It's
drop it like it's hot
Intimate.
on Steve's channel. Go ahead now.
Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, and listen. Let me tell you something. You better hurry and say what you got to say because the cuteness
all right.
factor,
Yeah.
you
Cuteness
are
factor
now
is
Yes.
here.
second
Yeah.
fiddle.
It's about to
We
take
got
over.
Okay.
we got another level. Look
Yeah.
at that.
It's
Oh my
about to
god.
take
Yeah,
over. Oh,
you
All right.
know a B student right now. Monty
yeah.
Weaver then came in here and
He's
he
like,
is
yeah,
winning.
man. There
But
we go.
okay,
I feel
See?
like
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
there
feel
we
like I
go.
missed all the
Boom.
fun.
It's over. It's
Yeah.
over.
Oh my
it is.
God.
Oh shoot. Come on now. We got the
I
boss
Full
in
think
the
that's why
house
screen.
my
now.
camera went out because she wanted to show up and show out today.
Listen, you got to pay attention to the boss. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
Oh
Appreciate you for
man.
jumping back in there, brother.
Yeah,
I
me
was
too.
asking everyone what they garnered from the conference, right? What were kind of the top two things that they walked away that are going to be actionable in their podcast and in their mode of operation, so to speak.
Yeah, I got that sense of there was no competition nowhere that I went throughout the conference. Like everyone was trying to help each other grow, either as podcasters or monetizing their podcasts. And those of us that were part of the Amazon Live track, we were just showing and sharing our knowledge of the different platforms. So that was one thing that I really got out of it. And being able to obviously connect with all of you all and the people that we know from our communities. It's one thing to be live with everybody and show up in everybody's chat and support, because that's important and we get a chance to connect that way. But to really be able to meet everyone in person, it just strengthened those relationships. And Steve, you talked about that a little bit earlier. It strengthens those relationships when we can connect in person. So really excited to continue this path of getting back into live conferences. Got a chance to connect with Steve a couple weeks ago at a conference, so I felt like I already knew him, but everybody else was a pleasure to definitely see. And then be able to like really talk. We can talk online, but sometimes you just need to really talk. And as content creators, we sometimes only know ourselves, the language of ourselves. So we have to communicate with each other so that we don't feel like we're on a silo. But I had a great experience, first time at Podfest, VidFest, and looking forward to going next year. Even though I don't podcast, it's that relationships that I built while I was down there.
That's awesome. Because I mean, that tails off of what Rob was talking about with Steve, right? The community was there. And I like how you said there was no sense of, the big I and the little U's, right? There was no competition. It was, you're on stage, you're trying to help folks, you're sitting at lunch, you're trying to help folks. You got people like the Dealcaster sitting there. Look, when you got Fuse and you got Stone there, you definitely want to have the recorder on and taking notes, because they're just dropping all kinds of gems left and right. The fact that you don't podcast, and Steve, I'm gonna come to you and ask you, man. You can't put me on camera, man. I'll take over the entire show.
I know. That's a good shirt. I love that shirt you got on there too.
Well, see, say something. Okay, hold on. Okay,
there we go. There we go.
All right, check it out.
Is that a medium?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a limited edition.
We sell
limited.
Whoa. I didn't know we sold mediums, but that's okay.
Let me tell you. Look here, brother. I stay underneath the squat rack. This one is form fitting. Where was I? Monte, the fact that you don't podcast, right? But felt the need or felt the desire, felt compelled to go to this particular conference and be a part of the sessions that we're talking about. Really, your specialty, right? Shoppable videos, Amazon Live, those kinds of things. After this conference, how are you going to integrate some of the key factors that you learned at Podfest into your Amazon Live shows? What did you learn any tools that you're going to implement into your everyday actions that you do?
Yeah, so over the last, I say 3 or 4 months, I've been introduced to a lot of podcasters. Steve is someone that's in my community, and I get to learn the language of podcasting. And sometimes on different platforms, you kind of think it's one thing, but when you really talk to someone that's in that space, you really uncover some of the other parts of what makes that platform so unique. And so being able to talk with Steve ahead of time and then being able to go to Podfest with people that actually do this, it gave me a bigger perspective of how I can incorporate podcasts into what I'm already doing. And so those of us that are on video, sometimes we're locked in on video, or some of us on audio, we're just locked in on audio, but there really is a way to do both. And being able to have ourselves on multiple platforms without creating more work. I'm big on not creating more things to do, right? This little one right here is enough time in herself to, so
that's
trying to
right
create
there, but nothing else is
podcast,
more important.
Right? So, I don't want to create a podcast because I don't have time for that. But I actually do have time for it because I'm already going live. So why not just structure it now in a way that makes sense for the podcast, but also going live, doing the things that I want to do as well. So I really learned how to integrate podcasting going forward into what I'm doing. And I think if I wasn't physically there talking to other people and how they do it, I wouldn't have the ideas to go forward, even though we can say, you need to do a podcast, you need to do a live stream, you need to do this. But until you get in that space, sometimes it just doesn't click. So that's why I'm grateful that I was actually there in attendance this year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey,
James, can I add something real?
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Can I add something real quick? Yeah. To that question, like, even though Monte is not a podcaster, I respect that he was there as well, because I think a lot of people we tend to sort of not you're like, hey, I'm a YouTuber or I'm a podcaster. I'm only going to go to things that are for me
Right.
and be around the same
That's where I
people
was
that
going
I
to go.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people sort of fail to find things to learn from sort of other aspects of life. You know, like we're all content creators, even though you're not a podcaster, if you're only a video creator, there's a lot that you could learn from this conference and being around podcasters, because you're essentially trying to do sort of the same thing: build an audience, build revenue streams, learn how to, you know, keep people's attention and grab their attention and things like that. And so, yeah, by not, you know, by discounting different events or different communities, by saying like, that's not really me, I'm not a podcaster, I'm not a YouTuber or whatever, I think you're missing out on a lot of learning opportunities and networking and all that stuff. So just wanted to add that.
No, that's fantastic. That's literally what I had next I wanted to talk about, right? You know, why do we still have that delineation between podcasts and content creation, right? Because we're not just audio anymore. Audio has had a rebirth with the pandemic, with the lockdown, right? With the advent of things like Clubhouse, with the advent of Volley, and some other platforms out there as well. But at the end of the day, you're right. It's all content creation. And I'm quite sure that during the conference, it was mentioned about YouTube going to officially start supporting podcasts. And talk to me, if anyone went to that session, what that conversation was and how those of us who weren't there can prepare for that next step, right? When YouTube actually has the hooks in, has the tags in, has all the infrastructure in for our podcast as well on that platform. Because again, most of us start there from a monetization perspective, right? As our community and as our environments grow, then we go to something like a Uscreen or something of that. But we typically start with YouTube. So Steve or anyone have any insight on that?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things, right? So when I had James Critland on a while ago, he's like the podcast like godfather, if you will. And we talked about podcasting 1.0 and podcasting 2.0, which is really just how are you tagging your podcast descriptions, different things associated with the discoverability of your podcast. So now what you're starting to see is that you're starting to see a little bit more of the old guard. And what I mean by that is that is audio only, right? Because typically people will say podcast is audio only, and it really is. But the issue that I think we don't discuss enough is the distribution. Like Rob and I were talking about the distribution of content. Podcasting in and of itself, the essence of it was an RSS feed, which is really just a distribution of content, of created, crafted, produced content. It's the content in and of itself doesn't necessarily go do anything unless it goes somewhere. And so the podcast is really just a distribution method of a produced conversation, as Sherry Jones calls a podcast, right? And so I think we're that's the conversation that I wish we would have had more of a little bit at Podfest, because I've been doing this for a while. So there's still an underpinning of the old guard that is still against, you know, some of the idea that a video podcast could be actually called a podcast. And if we really go through the context of understanding that it's about the distribution of created content more so than the actual how it's actually created, right? I think we can actually kind of break down some of those walls, because at the end of the day, we are all content creators. And I think with YouTube coming on play, right, you don't have a choice, right? If you want, you just really don't have a choice whether or not, if this is something that you want to do or if you want longevity. The audio podcast is always going to be around, right? Because I talk about it. I talk about it all the time. It is still going to be around. It is not going anywhere. Everybody thought Clubhouse was going to kill it. Forget about it. Didn't happen. Everybody thought Twitter Spaces was going to kill it. Not going to happen. Audio podcasts will still be around because of the intimacies associated with it. But the YouTube aspect of it, we are, who's on this conversation, having this dialogue, and people are in the chat, we're at the sharp end of the stick right now. Because in talking to a lot of podcasters, we are trendsetters, and I don't mean that to be in a big head standpoint, but we are kind of defining what needs to kind of take place, you know, over the next 12 to 18 months. And if we don't do a decent enough job of that, of creating the infrastructure and talking about it, then we're going to become just like we can become also rans, and I don't want that for any of us. And so we have to actually kind of motivate and move forward. The one thing that I took away was I didn't realize, and all of you guys are bigger than me with your channels and different things like that. I didn't realize how many people actually listen to Podcasters Live or Retail Leadership with Steve Worthy as I was walking around talking to people. And I say that with all humility, because I realized that, like, damn, holy shit, like, excuse, I need to, this is my show, I guess I can say it, right? Tell the James show.
You can put the explicit
this
on
is
it if you
good,
need
man.
to. It's all right.
I'm sorry, the baby got baby here. We got the baby here.
Oh
My bad,
Lord,
baby. Sorry,
he
baby.
can't
Oh
babysit.
Lord,
He
that's
can't
gonna be your first
babysit.
word. I'm sorry, Monty. I'm sorry, Monty. Now, please don't let that be your first word, Lord, please. Is that, but I need to create more content. I need to keep going. I need to do things differently. And so if there's anything that I would have people take away from this, is get started, but keep moving and keep going, because there are people listening to your stuff that you have no clue. You have no idea who's listening to your stuff. Sorry for the long diatribe.
No, I mean, that's perfect, right? And I think I'll ask a couple more questions, and then, if you want to go roundtable, but it tails off of what you just spoke about a little bit, right? You talked about distribution. Earlier, you mentioned your dislike, disdain, your feelings for Anchor. Now, Anchor's Anchor's owned by Spotify. That's huge. So is it the Anchor app? Is it the Anchor platform? Is it just, what is it about that? Because you can't be in the audio podcasting world, or can you? Again, I'm asking these doubting Thomas questions. You can't be in the audio podcasting world without Apple iTunes, Spotify, and maybe even Alexa. Oh, geez, I don't want to wake her up. Maybe, Amazon and Google.
Podcast.
So is it right? So is it just the usability of the platform for Anchor.fm, or what is it that you have issues with?
It's the false assumption of quick monetization that they
Oh,
promote.
nice. Okay.
Right. And it's also the ads that are inserted within your podcast that you didn't necessarily sign up for.
Good point.
I said that because I actually, when I restarted my podcast, I actually started with Anchor, and I felt, I don't want to say violate, that's such a huge word, but it was the idea of quick monetization. And what I realized for me at the end of the day with podcasting is, and the way Rob talks about this a lot too, is around the consumption. Right? For me, I want more people to consume more of my podcast. That downloads don't mean anything. And you guys, some of you have heard me for a while say this a lot. Downloads don't mean anything, because you can have as many downloads as you want. That doesn't necessarily mean people are listening to your actual podcast. Same thing with subscribers too sometimes, right? You can have a ton of subscribers, but a lot of your subscribers aren't listening to your content. And for me, I want people to consume and listen to my content. So the consumption aspect is more important than the actual download. And I think utilizing different platforms has allowed me to actually have better consumption for my content.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Well,
I'm going to go around the horn and ask a question about, and this may be a controversial question, but we talk about it a lot in the YouTube video content creation space. And I'll start with you, Junaid. Listen, Junaid, you're a multifaceted person, right? You do beekeeping, you do home studio repair and construction, you do all this, and this. Having all of the things that make up Junaid in one podcast channel, your thoughts on that? Or should you break that up and have something specific about each of those aspects of your life? Because again, we talk about niching down in the YouTube space, but I almost wonder if it's different again when it comes to an audio podcast. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then we'll go to Rob and then go to Monty.
Well, James, thank you for that question, because and before I answer that question, I want to do a shout out to my man Chris Stone, Cher Jones, DJ Rodriguez, all these folks that I got to meet at Podfest. It was truly amazing. And to point to what Steve said, right? Downloads don't matter. It's the connections that we make that really matter. 2 weeks ago, we had a community of us had put this event together where we surprised a friend of ours. Now she, if you haven't heard of, she had a podcast called NFT for Newbies. They hit 1 million downloads in 8 months. Okay. But she said those 1 million downloads don't mean anything. What really matters is these 7 people showed up for me without telling me, right? So what really matters is the connections and the people that we meet. So to the question of all that who Junaid is and do I need to niche down? The short answer is no. But the long answer is yes. Here's why. And this only made sense to me after I've been doing this for 4 years of podcasting and the route that it took me, right? For me to become a beekeeper, I spent about 6 months watching videos on YouTube all around beekeeping. But I could not become a beekeeper unless I went and joined a beekeeping group to put that in. So did that mean that I had to niche down? Yes. To become a good cyclist, I had to join a group of cyclists to really build in. Like I was able to put in 1,500 miles in 1 year on my bike because I joined a niche group of cyclists that were dedicated to just cycling. I was able to build this studio out because I hung out with people who had amazing studios. Did I mean that I niched down? Yes. So the reason I keep bringing the niche down and growing up is because unless you've taken the journey to be good at one thing or not, you
Come on
really
now.
need to niche down. Right?
Yes.
I brought people from all walks of life on my podcast. Authors, actors, producers, entrepreneurs, copywriters, like you name it. Every single person was on there. And Pat Flynn kept telling me, you got to niche down, at least have 3 separate tracks. You can have beekeepers, you can have cyclists, you can have entrepreneurs. But I was like, no, I want to talk to everybody because I love everybody. But the more I did that, I was doing a disservice to myself. And he teaches, hey, if you really want to grow a podcast, go to the niche aspect of thing that you want to grow in your space. So all to come down to, what have I been talking about for the past year? It's just been one thing only, just one thing, and that's home studios.
Yeah.
So that's my niche down to what I'm preaching. But when you enter my world of Junaid, you're like, okay, I want to build a home studio, but I also like everything else that Junaid is doing. So you get to see all sides of Junaid, but you came in through that one door.
Yeah.
So that's what niching down is basically for me.
Yeah,
I
discover.
love it, man.
I want a studio with a beehive.
So
Don't give me ideas, because that's probably possible.
You can't just drop the Pat Flynn name and just like gloss over that. You know, you got to elaborate just slightly more, man. You can't just come in like that, right?
True.
It's
that.
all right. I love it. I love it.
So
Appreciate
the reason I dropped Pat Flynn's name is because, I've been following the guy. He did 365 days of live video on YouTube and got me inspired. I was like, okay, what are we doing, Pat Flynn? And he dropped this blog post on all the stuff that he was using in his studio. So I was like, wait a minute. I have all of these things hanging out in my closet here because having a background of video, right? I was like, I can put this together. And then I found communities like Ecamm Live. I found people like Stephanie Liu. I found people like Luria Petrucci. All of these amazing folks we're just here to help each other out. There's no competition because guess what? There's 8 billion people in the world with 300,000 new people entering this world every single day. There's no competition. It's abundance on abundance.
Love it. Love it. So I just got through reading or listening to Pat's audiobook, and I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
Super fans?
It was like
Super fans.
Super fans, yes, super fans, right? And again, very just commonsensical, just straight, real world scenarios and of how to be successful at from a professional perspective, from even from a personal perspective. So check that out on Audible, folks. Pat Flynn's audiobook. That's a good one. So appreciate you for giving that information.
Links in
Monty
the
Weaver,
bio.
what about you, man? Your
Links in the
thoughts
bio.
on? Oh, it's in the bio. Link in the bio. Oh my
It's not
God,
yet, but it will be.
This guy is an affiliate everywhere.
Rob got me not, unashamed to talk about monetization now after our conversation. I'm, it's over.
That's right.
It's over.
Balasbas wake up speaking about monetization, right? You know, that's where he came from. So it's all good. Monty Weaver, your aspect, right? Niching down again, because you do tech reviews. You got more and more PTZ cameras and you know what to do with. You've got more and more drones and tablets, right? You've got all this stuff. But again, that's probably 40% of who Monty Weaver is, right? You're a coach, you're a teacher, you're all these different aspects as well. Now, from a podcasting perspective, do you ever see yourself just talking about one of those aspects and just talking only about Amazon Live, how to be a live selling coach or something like that? Or are you going to go in and just give them that whole Monty Weaver experience?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, because part of what I am working on now is incorporating more of Monty the person into my videos. So just like right now, I have my daughter here. In most cases, you won't see her, you won't see my wife. But one thing my wife wants to do is start a podcast. So that would introduce more of who Monty is as a person. Yes, he does tech. Yes, he does this and he does that. But introducing the person of Monty Weaver, very similar to what Junaid was saying, is something that I'm interested in really doing, because I have to niche for my core audience for the business. I have to lead with, this is the tech guy. That's what that one singular focus is. This is what Monty does. But once you come into Monty's world, then you get a chance to learn who he is a little bit more. And so that podcast could introduce that. Even things like this, the subtle ways of introducing it. We're talking about PodFest, we're talking about VidFest, but you do see, oh, he's a new dad. And so people can relate to that aspect of it. We're not focusing on that, but it does allow for my audience to get a chance to learn and know me a little bit better. And when you do meet that audience member in person, like I had a chance to talk with Junaid, we had dinner, and to learn, how did you get started in beekeeping? I don't think that conversation would have ever came up just organically based on, okay, I'm going to go and we're going to learn about how to build a home studio. But it led us down this path of, okay, I'm not really interested in a home studio. We've done that. I know you can teach me that, but I want to know who Junaid is. Like, how did you get started in this aspect? And I think those real deep connections with our audiences are something that they value. You know, they're forgiving when Corey goes all over the place on screen, because they're more so connected with, now I want to really understand who this person is, more so than just someone that's on a camera and on a microphone.
Love it. Love it. I mean, and you think about it, back to the Pat Flynn, back to the super fans, having folks know more of who you are actually will probably grow that group of folks who are your super fans, are the ones who are willing to share your content even before you go live with it, right? Monty Weaver's live on YouTube. They will immediately tweet that out. They will immediately start sharing, because they know you, they feel a connection to you from a community perspective, and they are your advocates because you always bring the smoke with some high quality content, high quality recommendations and things of that nature. So by consciously and carefully, maybe, letting folks into your world and knowing a little bit more about who Junaid, Rob, Steve, Monty are, I think that again subconsciously grows your reach, grows your community, grows your influence as well within your particular niches. Do you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely. It's like I feel more connected to Junaid when I learned the beekeeper story, versus, because as a matter of fact, Junaid was on my show one time and he had his daughter. So I feel connected when, okay, I don't feel
Yeah.
I don't feel some kind of way when my daughter has to be on camera, right? Because his daughter was on camera. So it's this connection that, like you said, I wasn't even thinking about that, but he brings that level of comfort where, okay, I'm okay to do this, and
Yeah.
I think it builds that deeper connection. You know, when you get a chance to really know who you're buying a product or a service from. You know, they're not just selling me on something. I'm actually having a conversation with Rob, and he's like, "What are you going to use the Uscreen account for?" And I was telling him, "Okay, I'm going to do my Monte Weaver brand." And it wasn't Rob saying, you know, "Oh, you got to sign up for this, you got to do this."
Right.
It's no,
Right.
like, what are you trying to do? So let me know, and I can help you. Oops. I can help you grow your audience and use that platform. She's already learned the technology, y'all. I got her started off on the right foot. She
Oh
knows
yeah,
where the
I'm like,
she's
was that the
already doing
volume is.
it.
Teletubbies right there? Who
No,
was
this is
that? The
Coco
jelly?
Mellis. This is Coco Mellis. She knows where
Okay.
when an ad
Come on, tell
plays,
us
you
if
guys.
you dating yourself, bro. Come on.
I know,
Look,
right?
look.
I
When
know.
an
You
ad
take me
plays
off
on
camera right now.
YouTube,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
knows and will
Oh
make
yeah.
a noise because the ad is playing. So it's a deeper level of connection. And this
I
is
love
my
that.
trainer part 2
That's
right
too,
here.
that's too cool. That's
Hey,
too cool.
before we
And
move
you know,
forward,
yeah. Speaking of Junaid, we know all of Junaid's kids.
yeah,
I
we
love
do.
it. You know, your
Yeah.
son has stole the spotlight a number of times when I've been on screen with you as well. So love that whole aspect.
Hey, James, I want to make
Steve,
sure
I'll
have people ask if they have a question to go ahead and pose it while we have all of us here, right? I think this is just a good opportunity. If you have a question, you know, about your podcast, live streaming, monetization, you know, host and guest stuff, right? And I know we're talking about Podfest too, but while we are all here, I just think it's a good opportunity for people to kind of, you know, utilize some of this brain power that's actually up here, you know, per se. And we actually have a question here, James. I want to put it up here too. And then you can go ahead and direct this however you want, sir.
Doug,
How
what's happening, buddy?
important?
Doug says, yeah, how important do you all think Twitter is for podcasts? I left it years ago due to the toxicity of the platform. Go ahead, Mr. Worthy. I'll let you go with that one first, yeah, because Twitter's a
Yeah.
trip, isn't it?
Yeah, dude. I don't even use Twitter. I mean, I do use Twitter. It's another form of distribution. I rarely
Yeah.
tweet. I just don't. I mean, listen to me, man. There's so many other platforms that are out there that are actually helping, you know, me grow my community and the business, and so I really focus in on that. Twitter is just it's a nice to have, you know, aspect from a podcast. Now there are a lot of podcasters who do actually use Twitter to grow their podcast, whether it's posting, you know, something like this, like a live stream or an upcoming episode or whatever it may be. I don't engage too much on Twitter anymore. So for me, I may be the wrong person to ask just from a podcast
Wow. Okay.
standpoint.
Anybody else? Just chime in individually, and then I'm gonna come in, you know, heckle from the rear with my response.
Of course.
Well, Twitter is a great organic platform, right? Sure, there's ads in there, but it all depends on, it all comes down to who are you following and who are your
Yeah.
followers,
Correct.
right? And then it's become more transparent. Twitter has, it's the same as every single other platform. How organic can you be? How authentic are you yourself on that platform? And who are you subscribing to? Because what happened a few years ago, right? We were in this echo chamber. So
Mhm.
maybe you're feeling that echo chamber on Twitter, and maybe that's what turning you off. So it comes down to eliminate the noise, eliminate what you don't subscribe to, start unfollowing, right? It all comes down to an active action on your part on what's going to work for you, as opposed to just blaming the system. Because guess what? No matter which platform we go to,
Come on.
human beings are going to be human beings.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to have good, we're going to have bad, we're going to have, right. It doesn't matter. It's human nature. That's the algorithm on every single platform. Hopefully that helps.
Always. Listen, I'm a proponent. I feel that I stole this actually from the CEO of Mighty Networks. People pay attention to what they pay for.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
So I actually subscribe to Twitter Blue. Twitter is actually my largest by number community. And I got right? Since I stream also all of my live streams to Twitter. And right now I've got a ton of folks that are watching. So shouts out to my community on Twitter. The challenge with Twitter is that there's no engagement back and forth during the live session, right? No one can actually comment. No one can actually engage and interact. But the reason that I pay for Twitter is for those reasons that you were saying, Junaid, right? To get rid of the ads, to get rid of a lot of that negativity. And like Doug is saying, the toxicity that's around it. I was big a few years ago in Twitter chats and, the hashtag conversations, but those can get noisy. So I've been very conscious in terms of my utilization of the platform. But because of the evolution of some of these other platforms, I'm really starting to consider whether or not I still continue to go live on Twitter when I go live on YouTube or LinkedIn, right? Because again, I'm looking for, as we keep talking about, the community, the engagement, the interaction, the comments, all of that stuff. And you can't get that with Twitter. Yeah. So, is again, you have to be really focused and concentrated in terms of where you put your information out. Twitter has more pros than cons. But the cons are very loud, and especially with the climate that's happening right now, right? Elon Musk is in the midst, and it's turning into something very different in terms of what he's trying to do with it. So neither here or there, neither good nor bad. But again, there's a paradigm shift that's happening with that platform that was really just back and forth conversations. So again, long answer short. I'm reevaluating my utilization of that particular platform as well, and really starting to lean more towards podcasting, live streaming, video casting, video content creation, things of that nature. So,
that
good
takes
question,
time,
Doug.
too. That takes time. Like, you have to figure out what you want to stand for and what you want your content to stand for, and to use another overused word, your avatar, right? Who's your audience? Like, where's your audience, right? That's where you go to. That's who you connect with, right? And I think you can experiment on other platforms for a little bit, but I think if you stay there too long, then your stuff just becomes more noise because you don't have a big enough following to actually garner respect, or the algorithm to garner any respect of who you are. And so you have to kind of go in where you fit in, man, and where your crew is, and that just takes time. You can experiment all you want, but I just think you have to kind of understand that aspect as well.
Perfect. One last question from me, and then Steve, I'll let you run with the show. And this is for you, Dr. Balasbas. Monetization from a podcasting perspective, right? Because again, that's really your wheelhouse. And what are you seeing are kind of the paths that podcasters are taking right now? How are they monetizing? Are they creating their own pre, mid, and post ads? Are they reaching out to technology companies and infrastructure places to say, let me run a 30-second promo for you on my podcast that matches with your genre or whatever the case may be? How are you seeing or talking about folks who want to monetize their podcast specifically?
It's good. I like that question. I look at podcasters. So, you've got your platforms. Again, going back to discovery and revenue platforms, I think podcasts, if you just have a podcast and nothing else, you're relying on, I think Spotify has launched some type of monetization. People can become a member, again, these are afterthoughts of these platforms. They didn't build these platforms for you to make money. They built these platforms so that they can make money from your content. And it's fine. It's an exchange of, building an audience that you can build, in exchange for them to have your content and use your content on their platform. And you just got to understand that, right? So same conversations we have with YouTubers and YouTube, and that relationship and that dynamic with AdSense and stuff. And so with podcasters that are doing really well in terms of monetizing, I'm seeing mostly brand deals, right? Brand deals. You can control that. That's direct. That is happening on the podcast, but it's coming from brand deals. Affiliates, which is an easy one. And those two really are sort of the ones that lead. I mean, other podcasters in general, I've found, are not as Pat Flynn is is a specialty, but most podcasters aren't really thinking about memberships and courses for whatever reason. It's just not something that they think about. I find video creators tend to think about it more because most courses are video based, and so they're like, well, what can I do with this video I just made? How can I create a revenue stream with this outside of YouTube? And so they're more sort of I guess forward thinking in terms of using memberships and courses. But for podcasters, brand deals and affiliates, so again, it's just thinking about what is this platform built for. And you're not trying to make a platform designed for discovery to make revenue, because you're just gonna get really frustrated really quick, right? So leverage the podcast, you grow your audience, right? I think one of the things that, and I shared this in the talk that I did last week, is that one way to really determine, or sort of a quick litmus test of, is this a revenue platform or discovery platform? Discovery platforms typically have an algorithm. And so if you're trying to figure out the algorithm, most likely that's a discovery platform.
Yeah.
Most revenue platforms don't have algorithms. It's just like, they're here, they're ready to buy. There's no other distractions. There's no other content trying to squeeze in. You got their attention, they're ready to buy, right? And so that's sort of like the biggest litmus test that I can think of when I really started thinking about what is the difference. Like, people are going to ask, what's the difference between discovery and revenue? Discovery platforms usually have an algorithm, and so that should be a big flag of saying, like, okay, this is discovery. Let's focus on discovery. Let's make good content, build community, connect with people. But then from this discovery platform, podcasts included, let's drive them to a revenue platform. So that's my thoughts.
Wow, that's huge. Listen, hey, I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I never want to be in the room where I'm the smartest person in the room. The folks in the chat,
Unless
folks
they're
on
paying
this
you,
panel. There you go. Hey, Mr. Worthy, I appreciate you for allowing me the opportunity to moderate this panel. This was a fantastic discussion, and thank you guys for going behind the curtain in terms of what you saw at the conference for us who maybe weren't there, and then some actionable items that we can move forward with our content creation effort. So I'm sure you'll have everyone's contact information in the description and things like that. But I can definitely see multiple streams of additional content coming from Junaid and Monte and Rob, just on their specific subject matter expertise on some of these things that we've already touched on. So again, I appreciate you, man, for letting me be part of this.
No, absolutely. 100%, man. I want to thank all of you guys for hanging out. And I know, Rob, you came on around 6:50, and you've been on almost 2 hours with me, dude. So I really appreciate you putting in the time and sharing your information and your expertise with us, but also the audience as well. And I know I kind of took some of your time, but I'm gonna have you back, and we're gonna have you on for a full hour with just you. James, he just had to be on.
I gotta muscle my way in. I'm gonna get on camera. Listen, I'm gonna get on camera.
Please. You know how much I love Rob. Oh my gosh. I'm like, dude. All right, fine.
Why you put me out there like that? It's true. It's true. But you don't have to do that.
At least he's focused. Okay, come on.
Hey.
Yeah. You need to get focused.
Your boy is on brand. Your boy is on brand. Stay focused on you.
If you are listening to this on the replay, if you have a question for either one of us, go ahead and put that in the comments, whether you are on LinkedIn, whether you are on YouTube or Facebook, whatever it may be. We will definitely, if I don't answer, I'll, and if it's for somebody else, I'll let them know so that they can answer the question. But we thank you guys for listening and being here with us tonight. And hopefully we were able to kind of give you some good perspective on like some of the things we learned about podcasting, but more importantly, kind of where the industry is going and how important it is for you to get started. Like we always say, Podcasters Live, the number one problem with podcasting or even content creation isn't getting started, it's discoverability. And so hopefully you've learned some tools and tricks to kind of learn how to get your podcast discovered as well too. So on behalf of all of these good people, Monte and his beautiful, beautiful daughter, like she just stole the show, dude.
Yeah, you know, that's what we do. If you want to get attention, you bring your kids to the show.
Yeah.
That's them weavers coming in, boy. Golly, them weavers, boy.
I will ask you guys before I do hit the close button. Give everybody out there one good piece of advice, something that you would have wish you would have learned, or you wish you knew before you started kind of down this content creation journey, because I think that'll help them out. I'll start with Junaid.
All right, so you can learn more about Junaid at Super Junaid on every single platform you can imagine. There's a site coming for superjunaid.com. And if you want to learn more about home studio, just check out homestudiomastery.com.
Excellent. And give people a piece of advice, man. Something that you wish you would have learned. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Just get started, man. Find the people that are doing what you want to do and just get started, because if I hadn't started and jumped in my car and started talking about Queen Bee and Beyonce for my podcast Hacks and Hobbies, I would not be sitting here 4 years later. Just get started.
Awesome. Mr. Monte, where can people find you? Give them a piece of advice.
Yeah, you can definitely find me on YouTube. Search Monte Weaver. You can find me on my new Uscreen page coming soon, monteweaver.com. So we'll be launching that really soon. Shout out to Rob for introducing us to such an awesome platform. One piece of advice, I know it sounds cliche, but and Junaid said it too, like you have to start. And I think just hitting the record button, messing up, getting through, we all had to go through it. Like every one of us had to get connection issues like I had, trying to get back into the stream and trying to restart. And I could have just bailed out and just said, you know what, forget it, it's not working. But you have to press through if you really want to show up. No one's going to find you if you don't show up. So hit record. We'll be there to support you as content creators. That's just what we do. And I hope to see a lot more people in this journey, in this content creator journey.
Excellent. James Hicks.
Man, listen, Monty just said it right. Monty's a professional, right? You need to Google him, right? And again, if this man is having issues with connectivity, whatever the case may be, and still coming back to get it going, the newbie out there should not be, apprehensive as well. Don't be afraid of having errors. Don't be afraid of having issues. If you have a perfect stream, then that's something wrong. Right, you actually want to bring out that natural and that real aspect of who you are. Right along with what everyone is saying thus far, man, it's really get out of your own way. It's something that I typically say a lot as well, because again, when we're in our own way, we're apprehensive and we're scared and we're hesitant to actually turn the lights on, press record, do all those things. So fall, get back up. You got communities around you that will help you get back up. Again, there's no big I's and there's no little U's, those kinds of things. So it's, again, I'd say get out of your own way. And where to find me, HICKSnewmedia.com. That's where everything really is.
There we go. Good deal. And then last, of course, but certainly not least, Mr. Rob. How you doing?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on again, Steve. It's awesome. As far as, there's so many things that we can do here, but I would say, really surround yourselves, find like 2 or 3 other content creators to be like your go-to. That's going to really help you. You don't have to find thousands and like a big community, but like 2 or 3 other content creators that are your peers, that you can bounce ideas with, shares up, struggles and, with your content and things like that. It's going to take you a really long way, really, really far places. Find yourself a community. I think that's really good. And then, start talking about money, Don't be afraid, normalizing those conversations around revenue in your business and your business models, taxes, for content creators, right? Treat this like a business. That's really important. And have a long-term view of everything that you're doing. And then where you can find me, just copy and paste my name. If you can find it, it's got a really long last name. On YouTube and Instagram, you find me there. That's usually where I'm hanging out.
Excellent, guys. Well, hold on and stay in the green screen for a second. I'll close this out. All right. Show me the money. How many of you have remember that line, right? I think that kind of sums up a little bit what Rob was talking about. But for what every person on the panel was talking about was just around getting started and understanding what that looks like for you is going to be different. But more importantly, you need to understand that you do need to get started, however that looks like, or whatever that looks like for you, and understand that. We are here at Podcasters Live to help you kind of grow your understanding of who you are and what you do, so that way you can grow your community and your influence through utilizing live streaming. So you can connect with us at podcasterslive.com. You can connect with us on YouTube, also on Facebook as well too. So I really hope you're able to get some value out of tonight, not just with Rob as well, but also with the panel. If you have any questions or anything that you want to learn a little bit more about, please make sure you leave us a comment or a question, and hit that subscribe button for us at YouTube as well. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Have a great night. God bless.